Make sure it was there. Call this meeting to order after our technical difficulties. I appreciate your patience with us this evening. This is the December 6th, 2016 meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council Fiscal Committee. Glad to have you all here. It's a raucous crowd, and all those folks that are watching from home on their computers and various other devices. We're going to start with the approval of the minutes from our meeting of Tuesday, November 1st. You have those online and in your hands.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
So moved. Second.
Second. Motion. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. We'll file those. We're going to jump right into reports and updates with our budget analyst, Mr. Bixler. We're going to talk about authorization and notice of city contracts and agreements. Mr. Bixler, if you'll walk us through that.
David Bixler, budget analyst for the City Council. In 2011, the Council adopted an ordinance where bid limits of the city would mirror those of the state. The changes we're discussing today increase bid limits and extend the time to award bids. Other than this, contracts, agreements, and amendments that are in excess of state bid limits that require council approval has not changed. Furthermore, circumstances that exempt contracts, agreements, and amendments that are in excess of state bid limits requiring council approval has not changed. Two bills enacted in the last legislative session impact the city's bidding. Senate Bill 118 increased the state bid limit from $25,000 to $50,000, and House Bill 1102 increased the time from a bid's opening to the time it's awarded from 30 days to 45 days. Scott Rust will explain the effects this has on the city's business.
Good. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Rust.
Good evening, councilors. Scott Rust, Purchasing Manager, Finance Office. Back in the last legislative session, the legislature did pass a few bills, Senate Bill 118 and 1102. Basically, what it's done is it's increased the bid limit on equipment only to go from $25,000 to $50,000. Really, that's really all that happened there. And then 1102, the other piece that they did there is that it increased the day. Actually, this is a bill that I actually helped put together. What we're trying to do is increase the time period of awarding from 30 days to 45 days. There are a few instances where I run into equipment that it takes a little bit longer to evaluate the bids. Considering, I send out specifications that are right around anywhere from 100 to 200 pages long. They have to respond back to them, and we have to review all of that. It does take time, and there's federal requirements that need to be met. So that being said, we are now going to be moving those to 45 days. So I have been working with Karen Leonard to put some ordinances together. You'll see some revisions come forth in a future meeting that will increase the bid limit just for equipment to $50,000, and then extend our time period that we get to review the bids. So since our ordinances actually mirror state law, we have to update our ordinances. So this is just purely an update based on state law change. So what kind of impact is this going to have for the city council in approving contracts? Really, going from 30 days to 45 days, hardly any at all. You guys really won't notice any difference. That's just an efficiency for us that allows us to get the work done in the time period required, so the contract is not null and void. The other piece is going from $25,000 to $50,000. There's going to be a few contracts that you normally saw come through on the consent agenda that you normally wouldn't see. So I went back and I looked at this year. Okay, if this law went into effect January 1, what would it look like this year up to this date? There was, I believe, 6 contracts that probably would not have come across the city council for approval based on the way the ordinance is written. One of them is Studio Lights for Channel 16, $35,000 contract. I had 2 of them for a pickup, one at $25,000, one at $41,000 respectively. Police motorcycles for $32,000. A digital projector and screens for $39,537, and then finally a veterinarian anesthesia ventilator for the zoo for about $26,000. So
We're all going, where's the ventilator thing go? So thank you for saying that.
yes, yeah, we buy just about anything. So if you can about imagine it, we probably have bought it. So again, it's not a huge impact to what the council will see. Now, keep in mind that ordinance is kind of a catch-all type ordinance where if it's a multi-year contract or if it is per vendor per calendar year, you're probably going to see them. So it could fluctuate. You might see everything, and there might be years where you see, you might not see 5, or 6 or whatever. So it's pretty small. This really doesn't help us out a lot as far as efficiencies, but it's an important change for us that if we're going to stay with mirroring state law, we would like to just continue to update state law and update ordinances at the same time.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Rust. Questions from the committee?
Yes.
Councilor Starr, yes.
Absolutely. Scott, how do they define equipment? I guess it's a little nerdy for me, but when we make that, I'm assuming there's a definition and a.
Actually, no, there is not. Equipment is not defined in state law. It's not. No, it's under the supplies definition. They use model procurement code when they built the new procurement law back in 2010, and equipment is actually a piece of the supplies definition. So equipment is probably more like your rolling stock. The items that I described here, that's equipment. Now a supply example would be a water meter or water parts to fix our water system, or things of that nature. Electrical supply parts for light and power, those are supplies. So, grass seed fertilizer for parks could be a supply. Paint example there. So equipment's mainly, you're going to be your rolling stock type equipment, gen sets, those types of things.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
Other questions from council? Councilor Rolfing.
Scott, what does the ordinance say now? Does the one that we did back in 2012, I believe it was, it said, did we move it to 25,000 or did we say
it just says per state bid limits? Yep.
That's what it says, state bid limit?
Yep.
So I guess I don't see the reason that.
Well, this is an exemption. So we're going to actually bring forth a resolution that's really going to update the ordinance a little bit. It doesn't change the piece that you guys approved back then. What it does do is we're really kind of modeling the exemptions. So what the state did is this bill, I'm going to say, it got changed as it went through the approval process, and it made equipment an exemption in the state law from 25,000 to 50,000. So we're actually updating our exemptions. So when you see the ordinance, it'll all make sense. And Karen is the one who helped me craft this, and Karen's here if you need to discuss that any further.
Second question, you're basically giving us everything, all contracts now anyway, aren't you?
You're seeing, professional services agreement. There's kind of a handshake agreement there that, you're still seeing that stuff too. Granted, it's a professional service agreement doesn't have bid limits, but yet you're seeing a lot of that stuff already anyway. So, yeah, you're seeing just about everything. I want to say it's probably closer to 90 to 95% of all the contracts that get executed, you guys are seeing.
Okay.
Don't hold me to that number because I haven't actually.
And that will continue if this. If
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, nothing's going to change there.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Other questions from the committee members?
No, we'll update you. Obviously you'll see the ordinance that'll come through, and Karen Leonard is here if you need to speak with her. But it's been fine-tuned, and it'll be coming to a council meeting very soon.
Very good. Just a couple of comments, especially Councilor Rolfing and I were involved in that original conversation, well, sort of the second iteration of the conversation about those contracts. And I know that at the time that was a challenge for staff to kind of bring that to City Council, and I just appreciate, I think it's made a huge difference in the kind of relationship that we have with the administration, and it's also made a difference in the way that the public sees the work that the city does.
Yeah, it is a lot to gather all that information and get it together. We're constantly fine tuning that process and trying to make it more efficient, and we're getting there.
And we appreciate that.
We've made a lot of strides getting there. So.
Well, it's valuable and we appreciate it. We really do.
You bet. No.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Timeline on this, Mr. Bixler, it'll just come as first reading at some point? When it's ready.
Yeah, we'll decide when we'll try to bring it in as a first reading, and
great.
We'll be here to talk about it some more.
Good, thank you. Any other comments from council? Good. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now, time for open discussion with this committee. Councilor Erickson, would you talk about a couple things for us?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Urbanbach. Councilor Urbanbach, myself, and budget analyst David Bixler, the three of us met with Darcy and Kevin Jensen a week ago.
Week and a half,
I
maybe.
think it was last Tuesday or so. And we sat down and talked about reporting. What does this count?
Just clarify, Prairie View Prevention.
Prairie View Prevention, I'm sorry, yes. We sat down with Prairie View Prevention, and we talked about kind of their reporting. We talked about the people that they're servicing, what are we getting, how does their funding work. It's a very, very interesting process, I'll say. There's several buckets of money, going back to that analogy that the state has buckets that they have to fulfill these obligations. The rest is for city buckets. These people have rates that you have to go by. It's very interesting how it works. And so we really just sat down and tried to learn more about their process and ask for more of a snapshot sheet of who they're seeing, what they're doing for services, and just continue that conversation. So we met for, I don't know, a good 45 minutes to an hour, and just really continued to gather the information based on where the dollars are going and how much is going to where. And the reporting, again, it's kind of a weird relationship where the money's passed through and then it kind of comes back around from the city to the school. And really the reporting, in my opinion, is being lost somewhere along the lines. I know that there is checks and balances and there is reporting going on, but it certainly can be better. And so we talked through that process and talked about next steps, which Councilor Urbanbach can elaborate on.
Cool, thank you. Well, and the committee members will remember that in the fall, when we approved the budget for 2017, one of the things that the full council did was we added back the money for Prairie View Prevention. It is a youth drug and alcohol counseling and not counseling, but sort of prevention program, right? And so we added that money back in, but with the agreement that this committee, the fiscal committee, would come up with how do we go forward into 2018. And so what is going to happen next is that we will, the fiscal committee will not meet in January. That meeting would have been right after the holiday, and we're just going to give our staff a little bit of a break on that. But then in February and March, as we had talked earlier, in February and March, this group will meet. We always meet on the first Tuesday of the month. We will meet in a working session atmosphere in the multi-purpose room that is, as folks come into the Carnegie Town Hall here, it's right as you come into the building. Gives us a little more informal way of working with people, and we really will be sitting around the table with Prairie View Prevention and some of the stakeholders in that contract and starting to work through what's it going to look like, not only, as Mr. Bixler said the other day, not only in 2018, but what does it look like going forward? You know, as a service to the community from this on behalf of the city for the school district, or how is that going to work? So we'll be doing that in February and March as the fiscal committee. So other questions or comments, items for open discussion? Councilor Rolfing? Yes.
Just one item that I think the people of Sioux Falls need to be made aware of is that you are not Rex Rolfing, according to the placard out in front. That is Michelle Urbanbach.
I would aspire to be Rex Rolfing.
Well, yeah, and you're much more attractive than I am,
Thank
and so
you.
I appreciate the compliment.
Well, thank you for noticing that. I'm sure that the 6 people that are watching didn't notice. But, thank you, though, for pointing that out. Any other items to come before this committee?
Move adjournment.
Thank you very much. I will adjourn.